This is Brian Fromm and Aubrey Sampson, hosts of The Common Good on AM 1160.
And we're excited about this year's LIFT 2021 virtual presentations on the topic of mental health and wellness for pastors and church leaders, presented by Hopeful Beginnings.
Each week in the month of July, we're releasing a new virtual presentation centered around an aspect of this topic. You can see all of them at 1160hope.com/lift.
And we're thankful for the supporting sponsors who made this series possible: Lydia Home, My Pillow, and Moody Theological Seminary.
This week, we're excited to hear from Ashanti Pettaway, pastor and founder of A Clearer View, which is a nonprofit organization that seeks to build emotionally, spiritually, and mentally healthy people.
We're glad we're able to share this message with you from Pastor Ashanti Pettaway as part of LIFT 2021.
Greetings, Ashanti Pettaway here with you. I am a pastor and founder of a nonprofit ministry called A Clearer View, building emotionally, spiritually, and mentally healthy people. Man, it is an honor and joy to be with you today, and I'm excited for our time together in this brief journey. You know, when I was a young boy, I was a huge fan of superheroes. Loved Spider-Man, loved Captain America, but by far my favorite superhero growing up as a kid was really Superman. The ability to fly faster than a speeding bullet, and could do laser, heat up things with his eyes. I mean, he was the man of steel. That's who I wanted to be. And I remember as a kid in our little house that I would put on my little cape that I got from the store and tie it around my neck. And I would literally go back and forth between the kitchen and the front door, just going, Superman, Superman. Because I really believed that I was Superman in that moment. There was nothing that could stop me. There was no one who could beat me. Now, as a child, it was a fun thing to do. As I matured, though, I recognized that Superman wasn't real. He was just a character, someone that had been created, that was unstoppable, but he wasn't real. And growing up, I assumed that was something that would never stick with me, something that would never impact my life moving forward. But what I found as I've matured as an adult is that in many ways, I was still living subconsciously as if I was Superman. Yes, I actually believed that I had the power to do whatever needed to be done. That I was the one who was to save everybody. I was the one who was supposed to solve all the problems. I was the one who was going to have the answer and be strong when everyone else was weak. I was the one who pretended to be weak, like Clark Kent. But then I would take off my glasses, take off my jacket, and put on my cape and soar into action, because inside I believed I was Superman. And I dare believe and say this right now. I believe that there are many men and women out here who are still living as if you are Superman or Superwoman. You actually believe that it's your responsibilities to save and protect and care for the needs and solve all the problems of the organizations, the ministries, or the families that God has put you in charge of. But the truth is, it's a lie. None of us are superheroes. We serve an amazing God, but we're not superheroes. And our attempt to be superheroes is costing us drastically. In some recent research, as recent as 2020, it is said that 77% of all people employed have said they are experiencing or have experienced burnout. And of that 77%, 83% of those individuals have said it has had negative consequences to their lives and those around them. Those are staggering numbers. And what I'm here to say is, listen, burnout is real. And I want to give you a lifeline if that is your story. Our dear brother, Pete Scazzaro, said this: burnout is a symptom we are going beyond God's limits and leading in ways that belong to someone else. It's this idea that we're doing more than we were called to, going beyond the limits of God. But I know what somebody's saying. We're saying, but no, we've got the vision, we've got the plan, we've got the ministry to do, we've got the work. There've got to be people in the field doing the work. And I would say, yes, you're right. There need to be those of us who are in the field doing the work. There need to be those of us who are passionately storming the hill in order to conquer what needs to be conquered. At that same time, I would say that you're not the one to always do it. It's not your responsibility to always be the one who goes forth. And I dare say this, is there are two things that I think really cause us to live in this space of superhero, superman, superwoman. And that is this idea that we actually start to believe the hype. Now, I know some of you guys not be familiar with that phrase of believing the hype, but it's this idea of saying, listen, I actually believe all the good things people say about me. It's this idea that all the accolades that they say about me, all the praises they give to me, I believe in them so much that I'm actually hyped and believe that I can do it in my own power and strength. But that's not the truth. We can't do it in our own power and strength, nor are we really as good as we think we are. When we begin to believe this hype and fall into this false idea of ourselves where we can actually do it on our own, oftentimes we find ourselves making very poor decisions. And these poor decisions lead to us actually having a sense of self-sufficiency, which is this idea that I don't need anyone or anything to help me take care of my needs, not even my basic needs. I don't need anybody else because I'm self-sufficient. I'm sure you've heard it. I'm sure you may have heard it said to you that you need to be self-sufficient. I'm sure you've even maybe said it to somebody else that you need to be self-sufficient. But the truth is, we are to be people who recognize we have to rely on a God. Now, relying on God and resting in God is not just this passive act. So there is this element where you do have to be active and take responsibility. But this idea of self-sufficiency is dangerous. I think of the children of Israel. I think of the many great leaders within the scriptures. Oftentimes when they fell off or went against God's way, it was because they got to a point where they became self-sufficient. They said, we can take this in our own hands and we can handle this ourselves. We don't need to commune with God about this. We can take care of it ourselves. Now, I know that's probably in somebody's wheelhouse, including mine, but it's not something to shy away from. It's something to own and say, I recognize within myself I'm being self-sufficient, and that's a lie, and I can't stay here because this is what's causing me to fall apart. This is what's leading to me feeling overwhelmed and consumed with life. Second, outside of believing the hype, the second thing that I think happens during these times where we actually start to continue to live in this lie of being Superman and Superwoman is that we've actually lost trust in God. Now, I know what some of you are saying. What do you mean lost trust in God? Well, I mean this idea that you've lost trust in relying on him for every area of your life. Again, this is part of the lie of self-sufficiency, is that you don't need anyone else. But oftentimes this lack of trust or loss of trust isn't that we don't trust God for our salvation. We still believe that we're secure and that we have eternal security and we will be with God till the end. But it's this loss of trusting him with some of the other things of life. The day-to-day nuances, the caring of our family, the provision, the need to do and be able to do our ministry work. We lose trust in him. And the loss of trust often comes because we've just had some experiences where things have not gone our way. You know, back in 2015, I just stepped into pastoral ministry, the new church, was excited about it. Me and my wife were proud to announce our firstborn who was with us, but we were expecting our second child and was ecstatic. Second week, I preached my first sermon at the church. And that following week, after preaching that sermon, I found myself in ICU, looking at my wife as she was struggling in fear. We were concerned that we were going to lose our child. And in that moment, I remember crying out to God. I didn't do it in front of my wife because I had to be strong, had to be Superman. But I remember being outside and weeping and crying out to God, saying, Lord, I need you to save my child. By any means necessary, I need you to save our child in the womb. Lord, I've been faithful. I've done all that I'm supposed to. Do this, Lord. I'm walking in faith, believing that you are going to secure my wife's womb and bring forth our beautiful child in a few months. And it all will be glorious. And this will be a part of our testimony of how you came through in that moment where we thought we were going to lose our child. And the doctors say that was what was going to happen or possibly happen. And then we would be able to rejoice. We went home later that day, feeling at peace, trusting God. The doctor said, okay, we think you should be good. And hours later, we knew something was wrong. We spent that night back in ICU. And we lost our child. That loss and that pain is something that is very hard to explain. Regardless on what end of the spectrum you lose a child, the loss of a child is heartbreaking. And what I didn't know in that moment is that there was something in me that had been fractured. Although I was standing strong and being Superman, and not being over emotional, and I wanted to care for my wife Mel and make sure she was good, and so I had to be strong. But the fracture was that I had lost a sense of trust in God because he didn't do what I wanted. I believed a lie that God was supposed to do what I said I asked him to do as long as it was good. And so what happened is, unbeknownst to myself, subconsciously, I began to live life with the burden of saying it is my responsibility to care for and protect my family. I literally had stopped trusting God to be the one to take care of it. And for the next 5 years, I wrestled with that. I wrestled with it in the aspect, not that I understood I was no longer trusting with God, but I wrestled with it as I dealt with the pressure and the overwhelming pain that came from trying to hold down the fort without God. I was doing godly things, I was doing godly work, but I was not resting in the God who created it. And many of us have been hurt. We've had ministry disappointments. We've had family loss. We've had family hardships and struggles. We've had relationships that have been burned. We've had people who have hurt us significantly within the ministry work, people who have taken us for granted. And that lack of trust has caused you to say, I'm going to do it myself. For the wife out there is you who say, you know what, he's not holding his end of the weight and he's not being what he needs to be. And you know what, I'm going to hold this thing together because that's my job and I'll do it myself. To the father or the man who's saying, listen, I'm going to keep this together. I'm going to hold this organization together. I'm going to lead and hold this ministry together on my shoulders because I'm Superman. And it has led to stress, pain, brokenness, and dare I say a crumbling weight that is slowly pulling you down lower and lower and lower. You're burned out. And you're no longer taking care of yourself because all you're worried about doing is the work, keeping things afloat, and making it happen. But I'm here to tell you, that's not what God has for you. That's not what he's called you to do. You can't give what you don't have. See, many of us are trying to lead and tell people what they need to do and give to them saying, you got to trust in God, rest in God, and allow him to work through you to do his mighty work. But you can't give that if you don't have it. If you're not doing it, how can you give it to them? If you're not doing it, how can you give it to them by modeling it? When we look through the Gospels, many of what the disciples learned, in fact, I would say arguably 99% of what the disciples learned was not based off of what they saw Christ do, but based off of what they saw Christ live. They heard his words, but then they saw him live the word. So that's what we have to do. And in order to do that, it's going to require some things from you. It's going to require you to do some radical things. One of the things I would say is this, I got from a good friend, Chip Ingram, and that is this. You have got to have a ruthless pursuit of eliminating hurry. Like you have to ruthlessly say, I am eliminating hurry from my life. I'm no longer rushing. I'm no longer pushing to get everything done. I'm actually going to do a radical move and slow down. You may say, well, Ashanti, why is that the first thing we need to do? Well, getting rid of hurry and slowing down is the first step that allows you to get into a posture and a place where you can actually hear, where you can actually be in a position to hear from God and even take the time out so you can. The second thing you need to do is actually be with God. And you're saying, well, Ashanti, I'm with God. No, I'm saying be with God. I know you may read his word. I know you even may have some time where you're just in real deep study. But I'm saying be with God. I want you to say, treat it like when you were first in a relationship. And if you're single, treat it like the relationship you've dreamed of or a relationship you've had where you've had intimate, deep, beautiful intimacy with your parents or a friend or a loved one. And you just felt cared for, and you felt like you were heard and understood, but also you felt like you heard and understood them. Be with God in that way, which means you have to sit quietly at times and listen. Sometimes it's not always about what's coming out of your mouth. It's about you just sitting in his presence. It's about speaking his word outwardly over your life, even when it doesn't feel true. It's about listening and saying, Lord, show me your will and your way and help me to rest in you with all that I am and all that I have. Be quiet and listen, and I promise you, through the Holy Spirit, he will speak. Sit with your word before you, and he will minister to you through his text, and he will minister to you in ways that you could have never even imagined. The third thing I would say is this. Listen, you got to feel. Now, depending on who's listening to this, you may be a feeling person, so this may be natural. But this is for all of my people who struggle with feeling, especially some men that I know. We feel like we have to just be strong. And in fact, you know what? I know that it's women too, but this idea of feeling like you have to be strong, so therefore you eliminate feelings in order to go through and get through what needs to be done, I'm telling you, is a recipe for destruction. Because when you lose sight of how you feel, you lose sight of yourself. And when you allow yourself to feel, what it does, it allows you to come to grips with the hardships of life. It allowed me to come to grips with the fact that I had stopped trusting God in regards to the care of my family because he did not spare my daughter. But that wasn't fair. That wasn't fair to God, who has done everything else. He is secure of my soul. He's done things for me that I can't even, the list goes on of the great things he's done and the works he's done in my life and the ways he's preserved and kept me, even when I was not with him as his child. But you got to let yourself feel and ask yourself, why do I respond this way? Why am I so angry at my kids? Why am I so angry with my employees? Why am I so angry at my boss? Why am I so angry with my husband and my wife? Why am I angry with the driver? Why am I honking my horn? Why am I cursing in my mind and sometimes out of my mouth? Why am I so intense all the time? And getting in touch with those hurts and those feelings are going to be what transforms you, because as he reveals himself to you and you begin to have him reveal more of yourself to yourself, you'll find healing and hope and answers. And as you find out what the cause is, then you can begin the healing process, so then you can change how you react. And the last thing I would say you need is this. You have to be able to journey with others. I know what you're saying. You're like, well, I'm in a position of power, or I have people who are under me. I can't just journey with everybody. What I'm saying is, you've got to journey with somebody. We're not called to do this alone. One of the greatest things you can do as a leader, whether that be pastor, a leader of a home, leader of your children, whatever capacity of leadership that you're in, one of the greatest things you can do is walk in vulnerability and transparency with others so they can hold you accountable and so they can help lift you up. That's what we need. We need other people to help lift us up. And when we don't have that, we are destined to fail. And I know what somebody might be saying as well. There's always a reason why to say opposite. It's like, but there's an exception with me. I don't have anybody. I don't have any family. I don't have any friends. And what I'm telling you is this: you've got somebody, and if you don't have them physically present, ask God who they are, because He has someone for you. He provides for you. He'll give you the person you need. It may not even be who you expect. May not even be who you want. But He'll give you someone to journey with you, to be real with you, to be honest with you, and to help you on this journey. And so what I tell you as I close up is like, listen, God loves you. He loves you so much that He'd rather you be in intimate relationship with Him, being honest with your emotions and your feelings, communicating your highs and your lows, like we see in the Psalms and David. He wants you to be slowed down and in community so you can journey along with others. He'd rather you do that than you make sure that your ministry is great, that you make sure that people can look at your family and say, oh, wow. Because all those things are good on the outside. We've seen throughout the centuries how things can look good on the outside, but we later find out they were broken on the end. And so, regardless of where you find yourself within this stage, I want to challenge you and say, slow down, be with God, learn your feelings, and allow yourself to feel His presence, and then commune with people in the process. You know, I'll close with this. My sister had a very poor diagnosis in regards to her health. And I didn't know how to pray. Partially because of the loss of my child, I just was like, I don't know what God will do. I don't know if He'll show up. I don't know if He'll actually come through. I can't determine what His response is going to be. And I sent a text message out to 3 or 4 of my friends. And I said, hey guys, can you guys be available in 5 minutes? They said, yeah. Hopped on that phone call and I talked with my brothers. These are guys who've known me since I was 19 years old. We've got 20 years plus of relationship. And I told them how I didn't know how to pray. I told them how I was frustrated, how I was scared for my sister, frustrated with God, and didn't know what to do. And you know what they did? They sat and they listened. They listened and they didn't say anything at first. They affirmed what I felt and they cared for me. But because they loved me, they would not let me stay there. And they said, listen, brother, we're going to pray for you and with you. And although we know you've not said that, you said you don't know how to pray, we're going to believe that God is going to give you the words to pray before we're done with this evening. And my 4 brothers, not biological brothers, but brothers under the blood of Christ, prayed for me, encouraged me, listened to me, and loved on me and let me weep, which allowed me to be in a posture and position to pray, where I could actually talk to God from my heart and watched Him work. You can't do it on your own. The burnout is real. But Christ is your anchor and your hope. Rest in the power and strength of the Father, the tremendous sacrifice of the Son, and love and empowerment of the Holy Spirit. Thank you.